Stenhouse wins Daytona.
Fumbles the broadcast.
And Xfinity rules the weekend at Daytona. We're going to talk about that and much more on this week's episode of Fascar Pitstop Podcast. All right, Andy, what did you think about this week's truck race?
I thought it was a pretty good race. A lot of action, some crashes. Zane Smith, he took it to victory lane once again, back-to-back. So I thought it was a pretty good race. I know Haley Dean wrecked out. I don't know. That's kind of like her thing going on right now, especially at Daytona. She always seems to be getting caught in the middle of stuff. I don't think it's all her doing, but it was a pretty good race. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I agree with you. I call her Wreck-It Deegan now. It's not Wreck-It Ralph anymore. It's Wreck-It Deegan. And she's never really the one that starts the wreck, but she's always in the wreck. She's just wrong place, wrong time. I don't know why she can't get out of that. She's definitely got to learn to either stay farther forward in the pack or farther back in the pack. She's staying in the middle when she's trying to make it to the end, and the middle's where all these accidents happen. So she just needs to change up that strategy. Obviously, she's with a new team. She's trying to build some repertoire with them, and she just needs to start off the season a little bit better than crashing out at the Daytona. Before Stage 1 even ended, by the way.
Yeah, it was very early.
Yeah, very, very early. Speaking of Stage 1, Christian won that one. Great for him. Tyler Ankrum won Stage 2. Really, that was all pit strategy. That wasn't race strategy. So, he got that stage win, but he wouldn't have got that without taking that early pit. Then it started raining. Obviously, we had a couple of rain delays there. And then we get to the Corey. Corey, what do you think about his time there at Daytona? In the trucks, at least.
I thought he had a pretty good race going on there up until the end there, but I think those Spire trucks, all those trucks are pretty competitively the same. They all run spec engines, so it's all about the same anymore. You can call it the Craftsman Spec Truck Series if you want to. But Corey had a good run there, but that rain, I think, if the rain would have held off, we would have had a little bit better finish.
I agree. With Corey, the one thing I'll say for him is he made a bad decision when he tried to run up and block, but didn't really trust the spotter enough, I think is what he said. So he didn't go in front and then got stuck in the middle and worked his way all the way to the back. Because, he was from the lead to all of a sudden after that rain caution, he was 24th. So, he kind of did it himself. But I agree. The rain definitely hurt. But, yeah, so Zane won, obviously. We talked about that a little bit. Is it Zane's time for the leap?
Absolutely. I think it is. I think he's proved himself. I think he should go ahead and bypass Xfinity. Just go ahead and get him up in the Cup Series. I always think back to when Kyle Petty was on Dale Jr. Download, and of course Richard Petty said, if you want to get into racing, just go ahead and bypass all that. Get your, just sink your teeth right into, doing some Cup racing. That's how you're going to get experience. And I think Zane is ready. I think he's proved himself. He's a champion of the Cup Series, 2-time Daytona winner. And he had a good run in the 500 himself, too. So I think he's ready.
I agree with you. It's, they're starting to talk about who's replacing Harvick. And it's hard to talk about Harvick not being in a Cup car, but I think Zane is that perfect person to throw in there. I think he skips Xfinity, just like you said, and bam, he's in that number 4 car next year. I hope it happens. I hope we're calling it now. Best of luck to Zane to next year. But let's go ahead and move over to Xfinity. Before we get there, though, make sure if you're still here, you like, you comment, you subscribe. Remember, we're going to take the top 3 questions for comments, and we're going to talk about them on next week's podcast. So make sure you do that before you leave, okay? Thank y'all, and let's move on to Xfinity. All right, so now let's move on to Xfinity racing. So I think the Xfinity racing was some of the best racing of the weekend. What about you, Andy?
I loved it. I thought it was the best race of the weekend, honestly. We had a lot of great 2 and 3 wide racing going on as soon as they dropped the green flag. I don't think I could remember any segment in the race if they were single file, other than, pit cycles going on and off. But aside from that, we had a really good race. Austin Hill, he was supposed to be pole sitter, and he had some radio issues right there before coming to the green at the start of the race, and he had to go to the back of the field. Didn't really matter to him. He was back up there, top 5 within 15 laps.
Yeah, he was definitely doing really good. Obviously Klingerman and Cole ended up getting the top 1 and 2 because of that. And that really didn't last too long for Claremont. He ended up going back pretty quick. But Cole hung up there for a little bit and then phased his way back a little bit. And then all of a sudden, the Hemrick wreck happened. That was pretty early in the race as well, before stage one even completed. Austin Hill winning stage one after cutting off Allgaier, who said, hey, if I didn't lift there, that guy was going to take out half the field through spinning. What do you think about that move?
I just thought it was a racing move, really. I'm glad they got it worked out, but it could have been a bad wreck. But thankfully, those guys are, especially Allgaier, definitely one of the smartest drivers out there. He didn't really put himself in a position to cause a big wreck like that, and he did what he had to.
Yeah, he definitely he's a smart racer. It kind of sucked because not too much later than that, after stage one, Creed gets a bad bump and causes a wreck by the 48. Allgaier was in that one as well. Obviously, he was just a bystander in that wreck. But it didn't matter what happened to JRM that entire weekend, it felt like. They were coming back up to the front, no matter where their cars were. They raced.
Yeah, those JRM cars were pretty darn strong this last weekend. I think Allgaier probably had the best car out of all four of them.
Oh, yeah.
But with the whole incident, getting caught up in that, and then he had a little bit of right rear quarter panel damage. He still came back, within 10 laps and was still back up in the top 5 again. So they definitely flexed their muscles, especially the 7 car. I hate it for Allgaier. I thought he should have won that race for sure.
Oh, I agree. If it wasn't, I feel like there are going to be a little bit of talks with JRM, because I feel like if his teammate didn't try to pull the move on him where he went to block, he ultimately would have won that race. And also, we wouldn't have a JRM car upside down sliding down the stretch. Obviously, you got to make a winning move there, so I understand why he did it. But at the same time, you went from having probably 2-3 cars in the top 5 to no.
It seems like, especially from coming off the Phoenix of last year, 3 JRM cars being in that Final Four and not winning the championship, and then what they had going on at Daytona, they had teamwork, but it seemed like that last segment or that last stage, they didn't really care about teamwork. They were all for themselves. And I don't know if it's just that mentality that Dale Jr. has raised up in that organization, work with your teammates, but, also at the same time, bring the trophy home. I don't know what it is. But they definitely seem like they hurt themselves there at the end of the race.
I agree with you. And I'll tell you what, too, as we're talking about it, FS1 booth did a fantastic job of announcing that race as well. I mean, you had Blaney and Allen. They did a great job up there. I don't think you could ask for much more.
I think that race was made the best race of the weekend because of Austin Dillon and Ryan Blaney in the booth. Those two, from the drop of the green flag, explained how runs were forming, how all the strategies were playing out, everything on the track down to the detail, and brought that excitement level all the way to the top. And that is what, as we get into this podcast later on, I think that's the main difference between Saturday and Sunday. That Saturday race, the Xfinity race, that FS1 crew, they killed it. They did the best job possible, and because of that, I give them a 10 out of 10 on that broadcast.
Oh, I agree. Xfinity won that weekend. They were number one from the beginning to the end, did a great job. They were phenomenal all weekend between the racing, the broadcasting, all of it. All right, guys. So now let's move on to Cup racing. But before that, make sure y'all hit the like button, you subscribe, and comment below a question. Remember, we're picking the top 3, and we're going to answer them on next week's broadcast. So make sure that y'all comment something good down there. We'll answer it. We want to make sure that we return back to the fans just the same way that y'all are tuning in and watching us right now. So thank y'all so much. But all right, let's get into Cup racing. Andy, take it away. What you got?
That Cup race, I'm a harp on 2 points. We've got great racing on the track. I thought it was a great race. There was a couple boring segments going on in the middle of that race that, as anticipated with the 500, guys are trying to, get towards the end of that race, in one piece. So the race itself was pretty good. The broadcast, on the other hand, was horrendous. I don't have anything good to say about it other than the fact that, we got this new TV deal coming up, and hopefully in 2025, there's going to be some new TV rights that, we don't have to see as many commercials. I think that the commercial breaks alone in this race pretty much ruined the whole excitement and vibe of it. we had friends down there at the 500. They said it was a fantastic race. And like I said, on TV, it was a great race. But going forward, those commercials killed that race. They really did. I think at one point, I counted, it was 6 laps after coming back from a commercial break, they went to another commercial break. That's uncalled for.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, literally, it felt like right when something was about to happen, they went to commercial break. I don't know if they timed it that way or if it was a certain sort of timing. I don't know what they chose there, but the commercials were just terrible. I mean, they either need to charge more for less commercials so they can make the same amount of money or figure something else out. One of the comments on one of our TikTok videos was a guy that said he averaged it out, and it was about, on average, every 8 laps. That's insane. How are you going to have 8 laps commercial, 8 laps commercial?
I get that. The Daytona 500 is the biggest race of the year for us. It's considered the Super Bowl of NASCAR, and with the Super Bowl just ending on Fox, and then Fox carrying the rights to the 500, they have broadcasting rights to it, and they have sponsorship lined up. They have people wanting to, show commercials during that race. I get it, and there's a huge ad revenue for Fox that pays the bills, frankly, for NASCAR and the teams. But the biggest problem is when you have 130, 140 commercials during that race, and they're every 6 to 10 laps. That's not a good look. It doesn't keep the attention span of the casual fair weather fan, because they're going to be like, well, I'm not going to sit here through all those commercial breaks. And it's a different sport than football. Football, if there's action on the field, they're not going to go to commercial break. But there's always action on the racetrack. So they're in a situation to where they have to do that. But the biggest race of the year, I think they can tone the commercials down a little bit, or at least do a lot more side-by-side coverage.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I didn't know if it was the race for 500 miles or 500 commercials. It all got lost to me. It
blended together.
Yeah. But all right, so let's get into the racing action itself. So obviously we had Bowman come out on pole with Larson at his door. So great, Hendrick starting at the front. I get what they were doing, but why have actual drivers announce the start your engines? Like, start your engine, gentlemen, start your engines. They're not even at their car; they're at the podiums.
Yeah, that was a little weird. I know that whenever these races, they do the command to start the engines. As soon as they do the command, the TV broadcast goes off air towards a commercial break. That's normal. And when that happens, everybody shuts their cars back off for fuel conservation. As soon as they start the engines, they're always thinking fuel conservation. So that makes sense. Go ahead and start the cars up. They had all the guys that were up on the podium doing the command at the front of the field before Alex Bowman and Larson. Just that way that they could get from the podium over to the cars as quickly as possible. But it was a cool little touch, a little nod to our Daytona 500 champions. But I don't know. I don't really have anything good or bad to say about it.
I can tell you the first good thing that happened to me at the beginning of the race, that was Ty Dillon blowing up early in the middle of stage 1. I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, I thought of you as soon as that happened. I was like, I know David's loving this.
He started puffing that smoke, and I'm like, yes, sir. Man, I couldn't believe it.
Last place finish for him.
Yeah, and then Brad, in his normal fashion, obviously wins stage 1 by half a car over Ryan Preece. Hey, I put Ryan Preece in my dark horse last week. I'm telling you, that guy is here, and he is racing some darn good racing.
It's a little early to tell, but I would say so far, between the clash at that super, super short track and then all the way to the 500, you have 2 drastically different tracks. Preece showed up. He's ready to fight. He's ready to race. I think, that he's trying to prove that he belongs, and I think he does. But all in all, those Fords, they were fast. We had Brad winning stage 1. And then as we go on, those Fords continue to show their speed and strength through the entire race.
Yeah. I mean, Harvick obviously was out there racing. I feel like he's a different man this year so far. He was getting out there. He was bumping. He was grinding. He hit Reddick. Reddick got out of shape, and then gets into Blaney, causes the crash at lap 121. Chase was out that early. Eric Jones, Reddick out for the rest of the race. I mean, you got some big names right there at the beginning.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's definitely ZFG in it this year.
I'll tell you what's absolutely crazy, though, is that Ryan Blaney was in that wreck, and I thought his car was destroyed. I thought he should have just parked it. He finished in 8th place on the lead lap.
Oh, yeah, they gorilla taped and WD-40'd, and they got that thing back on the track.
Every single caution towards the end of that race, I saw Blaney taking the wave around, and I'm like, well, here we go. Blaney still has a chance of winning this thing. He's my pick.
He was trying. He definitely did not give up at all during that race.
Yeah.
So we had Melon Man, Ross Chastain, win stage 2. So awesome job to the Florida man himself. We had Ford Strong all day. RFK was showing speed. Definitely was top of class. Obviously, we know that they're really good plate racers to begin with, but they definitely showed out for the majority of that race. It took to the end for finally Chevy and everyone else to kind of get some steam going and actually go back and go back to 2-wide racing, as well as make it interesting again there at the end.
I think we saw too that second to last pit stop, or that one of the last cautions that led up to the second to last pit stop. A lot of those Chevys came in right before they went back to green and topped off on fuel. And that allowed them to actually go a couple laps shorter or a couple laps longer on fuel, or actually take less fuel when they came in for a green flag pit stop. So that allowed them to kind of leapfrog the Fords and Toyota. And that's what gave Stenhouse, Larson, a lot of those guys, a lot of those Chevys, the track position toward the end of the race. So I got to say, Chevy, they played their cards right towards the end of that race.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the first overtime, the 8 and the 3 chose separate lanes. Obviously, we saw some differencing of racing opinions there near the end. I think the last 13 laps were the best laps of the race in general. But then all of a sudden the wreck happened. Obviously, Suarez, a lot of people going, hey, should they have called caution? Obviously, he spun out into the inner part of the field, not in anybody's way, not up the track. There's a lot of things out there where they probably wouldn't have called caution for that. So it starts going back to NASCAR trying to boost those ratings up some more. Let's throw a yellow. Let's extend this race some.
I know in our group chat I called that was not a caution. And then as they panned back to Suarez, he was sitting in the grass. I honestly feel like Suarez did that intentionally to, get a yellow, because it looked by all means that he had spun coming off a 4. And he was heading down towards the apron and everything, and he had it somewhat under control to get back to pit lane. So all he was doing was trying to salvage his race and get a caution out there. And really towards the end there, kind of screwed the Childress cars. Kyle Busch said it himself. If this was old times, with no green white checkered, he was the winner of that race.
Oh, for sure. He definitely earned it too. I mean, like he was racing. They were out there. They were pushing it. Austin Dillon was helping him out. And then all of a sudden, once that wreck happened, they chose the opposite lanes. And I get why, because you got William Byron right there who is going to be chooching no matter what. And then obviously he's going to have Logano behind him at that point too. So you have 2 really fast cars, really good cars. So I get what they try to do, but even in our group chat, I was like, that's a horse crap move, because Austin just lagged on the start, slowed that energy down, and then it bound up behind him and eventually just let go. And that's what caused that accident.
I know what they were trying to achieve there. The hopes were is that Busch would be able to get a good start, cut down in front of Dillon, and then you have 3 Chevrolets lined up in a row. The theory worked, but of course the line kind of broke up, and like you said, Austin got that bad bump and just kind of lost it and caused that big pile up there towards the end of the race too. So I hate it for Richard Childress, 2 torn up cars. Kyle did finish the race, but, I honestly think Kyle should have won that race.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest takeaway for them is that they've shown, everyone was like, oh, he's taking a step back. Oh, he's not going to be as good this year. He's not going to be competitive this year. He just showed that he should have won the Daytona 500. This is not even a Chevy-dominant track. This is a Ford-dominant track. So the fact that he came out, first time with this team, first time coming out in this car, other than obviously the clash, but the first time competitively going out there, and he came within a Suarez caution of winning. He did a damn good job. I don't think you can take anything away from him. I think he showed that this year you cannot count him out, nor can you count Austin out.
I would agree. I have both of them in my picks for the playoff, the 16. Speaking of which, my predictions are already screwed up with Stenhouse winning. So there went that. But I will say that between the Clash and the 500, again, going back to two drastically different tracks, those Richard Childress cars are here this year. They've shown speed so far. They were strong last year at the Clash. They were strong this year at the Clash. Mm-hmm. You've got, these two guys that are potentially, especially Kyle Busch, potentially ready for a championship in RCR equipment.
I agree. And I think if there's a most improved trophy to go out this year, so far, I know we're super early, but I think Austin Dillon is taking in being KFB's teammate, and that has elevated him to be so much better than he was.
I think so, too.
In years prior. So I think it's only up for RCR from here. Let's see if they can get back to being a dominant force. Only time will tell. We talked about it where, your playoff is kind of messed up already because Ricky won, but gosh, that's got to be awesome. You're a one-car team. I believe the team's only other win is back in 2014 at Watkins Glen. So Ricky comes
with AJ.
Yeah, with AJ. And, this is that team that they've been waiting, Ricky didn't – a lot of people don't think Ricky should even have that ride. A lot of people think that Ricky should be back in Xfinity or trucks or not even racing anymore. And he proved all of them wrong. He came out. He stood fast. He stayed in there. He made sure he didn't get involved in any of the wrecks or any of the cautions to the point where he couldn't drive the car. And he just stayed there and won. Obviously, it was a dramatic fashion because it was not an actual finish. They ended up having to go off the camera, which I really want a good super speedway to end on a green flag run, not this, let's look back at the camera.
Yeah, that was pretty disappointing. It seems like every time we go to a super speedway race, it's going to be decided by a green, white checkered. Yep. We spend 400 or 500 miles at these tracks, and, we expect these races to go green towards the end, but it seems like every time we go, we get a green, white checkered, and it kind of screws up the end of these races. It makes them so unpredictable. As they go on, they are pretty unpredictable, but with the green, white checkers, it really just anybody's race at that point.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, okay, who happened to be lucky and be a fender out or be a nose out? And you know what? I really do feel bad for Ricky Stenhouse and the JTG clan because their win, I feel like, is already being kind of taken away a little bit because of how bad the Fox broadcast was. I don't know what they thought, but that victory circle, lack of coverage, no trophy presentation, I mean, there just wasn't anything there. I mean, literally the guy said, hey, I can't do a burnout, I'm out of gas. But then they just showed the team there at Victory Circle, showed him giving hugs and stuff. Nothing. There was nothing else.
They interviewed Joey Logano, who finished second, and that was it. Yeah. There was no other driver interviews after that race. I get that fans nowadays can go to social media. They can go to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all these different social media platforms and get more post-race coverage. But when it's the Daytona 500 of all races, there should be a dedicated post-race show. Not let's rush off the air at 7:15 and put on a rerun of The Masked Singer that has already played. Yeah, let's get that clear. I honestly think Fox fumbled this so bad that it has tarnished the finish of this race.
I agree.
I agree. Poor Stenhouse because he should get a little bit more media coverage than Let's present him with the trophy. Let's see that. I get it. Let's go to social media and see that ourselves. But most casual fans, they're not. They're not going to tune into that.
And, some people were mentioning on one of our TikToks that we posted, and they're like, well, FS1 does the post-race coverage. Not here.
No.
There was nothing there.
FS1 does the post-race coverage Monday at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock.
Yeah,
on race. There's your post-race coverage.
Yeah.
You're going to make us wait about 24 hours to get, highlights of what happened the day before?
Yeah.
The biggest race of the year?
They have to fix that. And I hope, obviously we're very early in the year, so I hope that they listen to what's coming off of this and the heat, because it's everywhere. I've seen it on TikTok. I've seen it on Instagram. I've seen it on the forums. I've seen it everywhere. They are getting bashed for all these commercials everywhere. So hopefully they fix that part, and they also fix that into the race, because Ricky deserved more. He just did something with a one-race team with JTG. They deserve the kudos. Like, I feel like if it was a Hendricks, a JGR, or one of the big-name teams, I think there would have been more coverage. But because of being that lower team, the JTG, they were like, all right, let's just go to a rerun of Mass Singer. That's crazy.
I honestly think that if Chase Elliott would have won that race instead of Stenhouse, they would have carried through some extra coverage and taken it up to at least 7:30. He's the most popular driver, and they're going to want to play that as much as they can. But like you said with Stenhouse, I'm not picking on Stenhouse at all. I'm glad that he won this race, but that they're kind of used him as just like it was Michael McDowell or Austin Cindric, same thing. These guys are cutting the post race coverage so short. We as a hardcore fan as ourselves are, we want to see all that. And, we can go back to social media and get updates and everything, but I had to post a video just as an update on Kyle Larson and Brad Keselowski after that wreck because I did not hear during the broadcast that they were checked and released from the infield care center.
I didn't hear anything.
Now, it may have been on Twitter, and it was. That's where I got the updates from, but it was not on the broadcast.
No.
When we come into a new year and we already have the safety concerns of these cars, and as massive as a hit as those guys took, I think we should at least stayed on air a little bit, drug this out a little bit, like interviewed some more drivers, and then been like, okay, after that big scary wreck at the end of the race, it was okay.
Yeah, because, it was some hard impacts. They showed those cars afterwards going to the garage. They were torched. They were done.
Yeah.
So it was definitely lackluster. So we do every week, in case y'all didn't know, we do a poll on our TikTok. So make sure if you don't already watch our TikToks, go over there. We do throwbacks. We do race coverage. We do a deal for the race with a little bit of a catch-up news series now. But we also do a poll. Did you enjoy the race? So as of the time of this beginning for the podcast, there was a 63% of everyone that voted on that said yes, they enjoyed the Daytona 500. It was only for the Cup race, not for anything else. But 63% is pretty good. To put in correlation, the Clash was only barely 53%. So obviously people are liking a little bit more. Let's see how we continue. Talking about continuing, let's cut it.
Let's cut it.
Let's move on to our predictions for this week. But first, make sure, if y'all still here, like, subscribe, stick around. Make sure you put some comments down there. Remember, we're choosing the top 3. We're going to answer them on next week's podcast. All right, so let's move into the picks for Fontana at the Auto Club Speedway. Who you got for Xfinity?
I'm going Cole Custer, back-to-back. He won it last year. He's going to win it this year. He's in an even better car this year. Cole Custer, he gets it done.
So that was going to be my pick, but now that you've picked it, I don't want to have the same pick as you. So they said Tyler Reddick's going to be in this race this year, so I'm going to go with Tyler Reddick then.
Not a bad choice.
Yeah, I feel like that's a great pick out. Obviously, I really do think it's going to be Cole. He did really great last year, but I don't want to be the same. So Tyler Reddick's my man this year. Let's bring it to the end, all right? So now, Cup. I think I know who you got. Just this inclination to me, I feel like you know who this guy. So I'm automatically changing my answer, and I'm not going with Larson. Who you got?
Actually, I wasn't going to go with Larson.
Really?
I'm going with a different Kyle, KFB.
So, okay, that's very interesting. I was going to choose KFB, and I changed it because I was like, all right, he's going to choose Larson. So let me go with KFB. But then I was like, you know what? Let me give the Fords some respect. I know he finished in the top 10 last year. I believe it was 7th. I'm going to pick Kevin Harvick here. He's racing harder. He's racing angrier. I think he can pull this out. He was in the top 10 last year. He did really good. I think he can win this one if it's not Larson. And I really thought you were picking Larson here. I'm shocked that you went KFB.
I wanted to, but I honestly feel like, the car that Tyler Reddick had last year, if he didn't have that tire failure at Fontana, Reddick would have been there at the end of that race too. He had led quite a few laps. So I honestly feel like they're going to pick up where they left off. Randall Burnett being crew chief, same crew chief with Reddick last year, now with Kyle Busch. They're going to carry on, and Kyle's going to have that momentum, and he's going to get it done. He's going to get it done in California.
I hope he does, man. Obviously, we both pull for KFB on the side is not always the most known one. But, KFB, great driver, great racer. Wish the best for him. Hope he pulls it out. We'll see. But I'm pulling for Kevin Harvick overall.
Gotcha.
All right. So that's about it for this week's coverage. I want to say to everyone again, thank y'all so much for joining us. Obviously, if you're still here, make sure you hit the like. Comment that you stayed all the way to the end. Even that just means a huge amount to us. We do this for the fun of it. We don't, we're not making any money here. We don't do anything like that. We're just doing this for the passion of the sport. We're two friends that started going to racetracks, an all-star race back in the day, and we've just rolled it into this Fascar living. So make sure you check out the Instagram, check out the TikTok, go like it on Facebook. All that stuff helps us out. Hey, and if you can, go to our post and tag RecTech in it. We're trying to work with them. We love RecTech. We have RecTechs at our house. Also, we take them to the races with us and cook on them. So tag RecTech to let them know how many fans that we have that also want to use RecTech products. Until next time, see you.